My parents destroyed my childhood worshiping my twin brother while treating me like damaged goods, so I disappeared at 18. But what they discovered after I vanished exposed a truth so devastating it shattered everything they thought they knew about their perfect family. Hey everyone, if this story resonates with you, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Your support means everything to this channel. Growing up, I never felt like I truly belonged in my own family. I have a twin brother, Marcus. We're fraternal twins, and trust me, you'd never mistake us for each other. He's everything parents dream of when they picture their ideal son. 6 feet tall, athletic build, that confident smile that makes everyone instantly like him. The kind of guy who walks into a room and owns it without even trying. Meanwhile, I'm 5'6" on a good day, skinny, with thick glasses that make me look like I'm permanently squinting at the world. Not exactly what you'd call conventionally handsome. I'm not fishing for sympathy here, just stating facts. Facts that shaped every single day of my childhood. From the moment we could walk, it was crystal clear who the star of our family was. Marcus was always front and center in every photo, every home video, every memory our parents seemed determined to preserve. I was just there, in the background, like furniture that happened to share their DNA. The worst part wasn't even the obvious favoritism. It was how nobody seemed to notice it was happening. Not my parents, not our relatives, not even our teachers. It was like I was invisible even when I was standing right there. I remember my 10th birthday. Our 10th birthday technically, but it never felt like mine. My parents threw this massive party in our backyard. They rented a bounce house, hired a magician, invited half the neighborhood. But every decoration, every activity, every moment of that party revolved around Marcus. They bought him this expensive remote control helicopter he'd been wanting for months. The kind that costs more than most families spend on groceries in a week. When it was time for my gifts, my parents handed me a $20 gift card to GameStop and told me I could pick out something for myself later. $20. While Marcus unwrapped a $400 helicopter in front of 30 kids who were supposed to be celebrating both of us. I stood there holding that plastic card, watching everyone gather around Marcus as he showed off his new toy, and something inside me just broke. Not dramatically, not in a way anyone would notice, just quietly, like a small crack in a foundation that nobody sees until the whole house starts falling down. That's when I started paying attention to all the little ways they showed me I mattered less. When we went shopping, Marcus got name brand everything. The latest sneakers, designer clothes, whatever caught his eye. I got the generic versions, the clearance rack leftovers, the you don't really need anything fancy lecture. When Marcus joined the baseball team, my parents went to every single game. They bought matching team shirts, brought cowbells to cheer him on, recorded every at-bat like he was heading to the major leagues. I joined the debate team that same year. Won 3 tournaments in a row. Not once did they show up to watch me compete. Not even when I made it to regionals. We're proud of you, they'd say when I brought home my trophies. But debate isn't really a spectator sport, is it? Then they'd go right back to discussing Marcus's batting average or his latest touchdown. The money difference became impossible to ignore as we got older. Marcus wanted guitar lessons? Done. A new bike? Already in the driveway. The latest gaming console? Wrapped and waiting under the Christmas tree. When I asked for a decent computer for my programming projects, something I was actually passionate about and good at, my parents told me the family laptop was fine for homework stuff. I started working part-time at 15, bagging groceries after school and on weekends. Not because we were poor, but because it was the only way I could afford the things I wanted. The things Marcus got handed to him without even asking. My parents praised me for being so responsible and independent, like they were doing me a favor by forcing me to work for basic necessities while funding Marcus's every whim. They turned their neglect into a virtue, made me feel like I should be grateful for learning self-reliance while my brother learned entitlement. High school made everything worse. Marcus was the quarterback naturally. Star athlete, homecoming king, accepted to 3 different colleges on athletic scholarships. I was valedictorian. Perfect SAT scores, early admission to MIT, full academic scholarship. You'd think that would finally get me some recognition, right? Wrong. At my graduation party. Sorry, our graduation party. My parents spent the entire evening talking about Marcus's football recruitment and his bright future. When someone asked about my MIT acceptance, my dad actually said, "Oh yeah, he's gonna study computers or something." Very practical. Computers or something. 4 years of perfect grades, national academic competitions, a full ride to one of the most prestigious universities in the world, and that's all I got. Computers or something. That night, lying in bed listening to my parents still talking about Marcus's college prospects through the thin walls, I made a decision. I was done. Done competing for scraps of attention. Done pretending their indifference didn't hurt. Done living in the shadow of someone who didn't even realize he was casting one. I started planning my escape that very night. Took me 3 months to get everything ready. I opened a bank account my parents didn't know about, slowly transferred the money I'd saved from my job, researched apartments in Boston near MIT. I told no one. Not my few friends, not my guidance counselor, not even Marcus. Especially not Marcus. The night before I left for college, my parents threw a going-away party. For both of us, they claimed, but you can guess who it was really for. Our entire extended family came over, along with half the neighborhood. There was a huge banner across the living room that read, "Congratulations, Marcus," and "Michael." My name was literally an afterthought, squeezed in smaller letters at the end like they'd forgotten I existed until the last minute. Everyone wanted to talk to Marcus about his football scholarship, his dorm room, his plans. When people asked me about MIT, my parents would jump in with, "He's always been the academic one," in this tone that made it sound like a consolation prize. Like being smart was what you settled for when you couldn't be special. I watched my mom fuss over Marcus all evening, making sure he had enough food, introducing him to people, beaming with pride every time someone complimented him. She barely looked at me the entire night. When I tried to tell my aunt about my research project that had been accepted for publication, my mom interrupted to ask if anyone wanted more cake. That's when I knew I wasn't just leaving for college. I was leaving for good. The next morning, while my parents were busy helping Marcus pack his truck with all his new college gear, I quietly loaded my single suitcase into my beat-up Honda and drove away. No goodbye hugs, no tearful send-offs, no promises to call every week. I just left. I'd already arranged to start school a week early for orientation, so they wouldn't even notice I was gone until it was too late to stop me. By the time they realized I wasn't coming back for Thanksgiving, I'd be 18 and legally free to make my own choices. Boston felt like another planet. For the first time in my life, I was just Michael. Not Marcus's twin, not the quiet one, not the academic consolation prize. Just me. The professors didn't know about my family dynamics. My classmates didn't have preconceived notions about who I was supposed to be. I could finally breathe. I threw myself into my studies with an intensity that probably wasn't healthy. But after years of having my achievements dismissed or ignored, being surrounded by people who actually valued intelligence and curiosity felt like stepping into sunlight after living in a cave. My parents called constantly the first few weeks. Worried messages, confused voicemails, increasingly frustrated texts demanding to know why I wasn't responding. I listened to each one, felt that familiar twist in my stomach, then deleted them without replying. What was I supposed to say? That I'd spent 18 years feeling like a ghost in my own family? That their golden boy had been casting a shadow so dark I'd forgotten what my own light looked like? They wouldn't understand. They'd never understood. By October, the calls stopped. Part of me was relieved. Part of me was devastated. Even their desperate attempts to reach me had been more attention than I was used to getting. When that disappeared too, it confirmed what I'd always suspected. I was easier to forget than to fight for. I made it through my first semester with perfect grades and zero contact with my family. Christmas break came and went. I stayed on campus, told everyone my family lived too far away to visit. It wasn't exactly a lie. The distance between us had nothing to do with geography. Spring semester, I started seeing a counselor at the student health center. Not because I was falling apart, but because I was finally stable enough to examine the wreckage my childhood had left behind. For the first time, I had words for what I'd experienced. Emotional neglect, scapegoating, parentification, They called it when they praised me for being so independent while expecting nothing from Marcus. Dr. Chun helped me understand that my parents' treatment of me wasn't a reflection of my worth. It was a reflection of their limitations, their unexamined biases, their inability to see past the surface-level qualities they valued. That didn't make it hurt less, but it made it make sense. I spent my sophomore year building the life I'd always wanted. I joined the robotics team, made real friends who appreciated my dry sense of humor and obsessive attention to detail. I started dating a brilliant computer science major named Sarah, who thought my intensity was attractive rather than off-putting. For the first time, I felt like I belonged somewhere. But even as I built this new life, I couldn't completely escape the old one. Social media made sure of that. I'd blocked my parents and Marcus, but mutual friends from high school kept me updated whether I wanted to hear it or not. Marcus was thriving at State, of course. Starting quarterback by sophomore year, dating the homecoming queen, maintaining just enough of a GPA to stay eligible. My parents posted constantly about his games, his achievements, his picture-perfect college experience. Never once did they mention their other son, the one studying at MIT, the one who'd published 2 research papers before his 20th birthday, the one who'd essentially ceased to exist the moment he stopped playing their game. It should have stopped hurting. I was building an incredible life for myself, surrounded by people who valued what I had to offer. But late at night, scrolling through photos of my parents cheering in the stands at Marcus's games, that old familiar ache would resurface. The little boy who just wanted his mom and dad to be proud of him, who'd wanted to matter as much as his twin brother. That little boy was still there, somewhere inside me, wondering what he'd done wrong. Junior year brought an unexpected opportunity. A professor recommended me for a competitive internship at a tech startup in Silicon Valley. Full-time position, incredible salary, the kind of opportunity that could fast-track my entire career. There was just one catch. It started immediately, which meant dropping out of school for a semester. Most college students would have needed their parents' advice, support, maybe even financial backing to make such a big decision. I made it alone, like I'd made every important decision since leaving home. I accepted the internship, deferred my classes, and moved across the country without telling anyone in my family. By that point, it had been almost 3 years since we'd spoken. 3 years of building a life they knew nothing about, achieving things they'd never hear about, becoming someone they'd never meet. The silence had started as protection, but somewhere along the way, it had become punishment. For them and for me. The internship turned into a full-time job offer. The startup got acquired by a major tech company. Suddenly, at 22, I was making more money than my parents had ever dreamed of. I had stock options, a corner office, business cards with senior software engineer, printed in elegant font. Everything they'd always valued: success, achievement, financial security. And they had no idea. That's when I started seeing Dr. Martinez, my therapist in San Francisco. Dr. Chun had helped me understand my past, but Dr. Martinez helped me figure out what to do with my future. Specifically, what to do about the family-shaped hole I'd been carrying around for 4 years. You're successful, financially secure, surrounded by people who care about you, she pointed out during one session. But you're still angry, still hurt, still waiting for something from them. She was right. Despite everything I'd accomplished, despite the life I'd built, I was still that 10-year-old boy holding a $20 gift card while his brother got the helicopter. Still waiting for my parents to notice I existed, to acknowledge what they'd done, to somehow make it right. What would it take? Dr. Martinez asked. What would they have to do for you to feel like you could forgive them? I'd never thought about it in concrete terms before. I'd spent so much energy being angry, being hurt, being justified in my silence, that I'd never considered what resolution might actually look like. The answer, when it came to me, was both simple and impossible. I needed them to see me. Really see me. Not as Marcus's twin, not as the responsible one, not as the kid who didn't need as much attention. I needed them to understand what their favoritism had cost me, and I needed to know that they cared about that cost. But how do you get people to see something they've been blind to for 20+ years? How do you make someone understand pain they've never acknowledged causing? The answer came from an unexpected source: Marcus himself. I was working late one evening when I got a LinkedIn message notification on my phone. I almost ignored it, probably some recruiter or random networking request, but something made me check. The name made my blood freeze. Marcus Thompson. My brother had found me on LinkedIn. His message was longer than any conversation we'd ever had in person. He'd seen my profile, my job title, the company I worked for. He was impressed, he said. Proud, even. He'd had no idea I was doing so well for myself. But that wasn't why he was reaching out. Mom and Dad are getting divorced, he wrote. It's been ugly, really ugly. And in all the fighting, some things have come out about how they treated us growing up. About how they treated you. My hands were shaking as I read the rest of his message. Apparently, during one of my parents' many fights about money and blame and whose fault their marriage was falling apart, my mother had screamed something about how my father had never cared about me the way he cared about Marcus. My father had shot back that she was the one who'd always treated me like an afterthought. In their mutual destruction, they'd finally acknowledged what they'd never been willing to admit when it mattered. They'd failed me. Spectacularly, obviously, unforgivably failed me. I need to talk to you, Marcus's message continued. I need to understand what happened, what I missed, what I might have been part of without realizing it. For the first time in 4 years, I wanted to talk to someone from my family. We arranged to meet the following weekend. Marcus flew out to San Francisco on his own dime, took time off from his job as an assistant coach at a high school in our hometown. The success story had plateaued, apparently. No NFL contract, no broadcasting career, just a decent job teaching kids to play the sport that had once made him a star. Seeing him in person after so many years was surreal. He still looked like the golden boy, but there were lines around his eyes, a softness around his middle, a nervous energy that was new. He wasn't the confident king of the world I remembered. He was just a guy who'd flown across the country to have a conversation he probably should have initiated years ago. We met at a coffee shop near my apartment. Neutral territory. I got there first, ordered my usual complicated coffee drink, and sat in a corner booth where I could see the door. When Marcus walked in, scanning the room for me, I felt that old familiar feeling of being the backup, the afterthought, the one people forgot to look for. But then his eyes found mine, and his face lit up in genuine recognition and something that looked like relief. He walked over quickly, and for a moment I thought he might try to hug me. Instead, he sat down across from me and said the words I'd been waiting my entire life to hear.
I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry. Not for anything specific. Not with any context or explanation. Just a blanket apology for everything, delivered with the kind of sincerity that can't be faked. I don't understand, I said, because I needed to hear him say it explicitly. Marcus ran his hands through his hair, a nervous gesture I remembered from childhood. I don't understand how I missed it, how I lived in the same house with you for 18 years and never noticed that Mom and Dad treated us completely differently. How I never questioned why I got everything I wanted while you got nothing. He'd thought about it a lot since our parents' divorce proceedings started, he said. All those memories I'd carried like wounds, he'd carried like normal family moments. The birthday parties that were really all about him, the shopping trips where I got leftovers, the way our parents bragged about his achievements while dismissing mine. I thought you didn't care, he admitted. About the attention, the gifts, any of it. You seemed so independent, so focused on your own thing. I thought you preferred it that way. It was the same excuse our parents had always used, but coming from Marcus, it sounded different. Less like justification and more like genuine confusion. He'd been a kid too, after all. A kid who'd been handed everything he wanted and told he deserved it, while his brother quietly faded into the background. I told him. I cared so much it nearly destroyed me. We talked for 3 hours. About specific incidents, about patterns of behavior, about the way our parents had unconsciously but consistently chosen him over me in every situation that mattered. Marcus listened without defending himself or our parents, without trying to minimize my experience or explain it away. When I told him about leaving for college without saying goodbye, he admitted he hadn't even noticed I was gone for 2 weeks. Our parents had been so focused on his orientation, his dorm setup, his social life that my absence barely registered. "That's when I should have known something was wrong," he said. "When I realized my twin brother had been gone for 2 weeks and I hadn't even wondered where you were." The conversation wasn't healing exactly. 4 years of pain doesn't disappear in a single afternoon. But it was something. An acknowledgement, finally, that what I'd experienced was real and unfair and damaging. Marcus asked if I'd be willing to talk to our parents. They were both struggling with the divorce, he said, but they were also struggling with the realization of what they'd done to me. To us, really, because raising one child to expect constant praise and another to expect nothing had damaged us both in different ways. I wasn't ready for that conversation yet. Maybe I never would be. But for the first time in years, I wasn't automatically saying no to the possibility of contact with my family. When Marcus left that evening, he hugged me goodbye. A real hug, not the awkward obligation embraces of childhood. And he said something that stayed with me long after he was gone. "I don't know if I can ever make up for getting everything while you got nothing. But I want to try to understand what that was like for you. And I want to try to be the brother you deserve to have." 6 months later, I was ready to have the conversation with my parents. Not because I'd forgiven them, but because I'd finally forgiven myself for wanting their love so desperately. Dr. Martinez helped me prepare, but the decision was mine. They met me at a restaurant halfway between San Francisco and their respective new homes. Divorced, living separately, but united in their desire to somehow repair the damage they'd spent 20 years creating. My mother cried through most of the conversation. My father sat there looking older than I remembered, wearing an expression I'd never seen before. Shame. Deep, profound shame for the choices he'd made and the son he'd lost because of them. They didn't try to justify their behavior or explain it away. They didn't claim they'd loved us equally or treated us the same. They owned their mistakes completely, which was somehow both satisfying and anticlimactic. "We don't expect forgiveness," my mother said. "We just wanted you to know that we see it now. We see what we did to you, and we're sorry doesn't begin to cover it." They were right. Sorry didn't begin to cover it. But it was a start. I didn't move back home or suddenly become the son who called every Sunday. I didn't pretend that one conversation could undo decades of emotional neglect. But I stopped carrying their failures as evidence of my unworthiness. Today, 5 years after that first conversation with Marcus, I have limited but genuine relationships with both my parents and my brother. We're not close the way some families are, but we're honest with each other in ways we never were before. My parents know about my career, my achievements, the life I've built. They know because I choose to share it, not because I'm desperate for their approval. And when they express pride in what I've accomplished, it feels real rather than obligatory. Marcus and I talk regularly now. He's married with a daughter who calls me Uncle Mike, which still feels surreal. He asks my advice about things, values my opinion, treats me like someone whose thoughts matter. It's the relationship I always wanted with him, just 25 years later than it should have been. The little boy with the $20 gift card is still part of me. He probably always will be. But he's not driving my decisions anymore. He's not waiting for his parents to notice him or his brother to include him. He's just one piece of a much larger, more complicated story about family and forgiveness and learning to value yourself when the people who should have valued you first failed to do their job. Sometimes people ask if I regret the years of silence, the lost time, the pain we all could have avoided if we'd had these conversations sooner. The answer is complicated. I regret that it was necessary, but I don't regret protecting myself when no one else would. I don't regret building a life that didn't depend on their approval or understanding. What I've learned is that you can't force people to see you, but you can stop making yourself invisible. You can't make people value you, but you don't have to accept being devalued. And sometimes the family you're born into isn't the family you end up with. But that doesn't mean you're broken or unlovable or destined to be alone. It just means you get to choose what love looks like in your life. And sometimes that choice is the most powerful thing you can make. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening to my story. If you've lived through something similar, I want you to know that your experience was real and your feelings are valid. You deserve to be seen, valued, and loved for who you are, not who someone else thinks you should be. Drop a comment below if this resonated with you, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this one. Sometimes the most important thing we can do is remind each other that we're not alone. Subscribe now.